HIV is a virus, which means that it's got a lot in common with influenza or the common cold. And a virus is a really simple molecular machine who's really only interested in making more copies of itself.
"24% of people are firmly convinced that AIDS can be contracted by kissing someone on the mouth, and 30% are not sure, which means that more than half don't understand how AIDS is transmitted. In fact, the virus can be transmitted only by mucus, a wound, a used syringe, or a contaminated fluid. There are 5 biological fluids that can contain enough virus to allow transmission: blood, sperm, pre-seminal fluid in the male, vaginal secretions in the female, and mother's milk.
Worldwide, mother-to-child transmission is one of the most common ways that HIV is transmitted. If a woman is HIV positive and becomes pregnant, there is a risk that her child will contract HIV during the pregnancy, more commonly during the childbirth, or while breastfeeding.
Among HIV-positive people, 1 person in 3 is not aware that he or she is carrying the deadly virus. 1 young adult in 2 takes no precautions.
It doesn't target a specific audience or a specific gender, that kind of thing. Anyone could get it. It's not just in other countries, as most people would expect.
There is kind of a perception that it's either not so serious anymore or that it's really hard to get. And unfortunately, if that was the case, then why is it that the numbers of HIV cases aren't decreasing? Every year there's more and more people living with HIV.
It doesn't care whether you're old or young, or where you're from, or what sexual orientation you have. If it sees the opportunity, it'll go for it.
I think some people really are less worried because some people actually think there's a cure for HIV right now, and there isn't.
People have a tendency of thinking that HIV is kind of like maybe an African disease or a gay disease, and when they find out the stats or they find out that their friend has it, it brings home that this isn't something that's far away. This is something that could even impact you.
I'm Martel.
I'm Sasha.
I'm Josh.
I'm Sandra.
I'm Matt.
I'm Maria.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Desiree.
I'm Pedro.
I'm Marcos.
I'm Victor.
I'm getting an HIV test because I didn't use a condom.
Because I'm getting into a new relationship and I want both of us to be safe.
Because I shared needles back in my party days.
Because my husband had an affair and I just need to be sure.
Because I've had an STD and I'm more at risk of contracting the HIV virus.
Because now that there's a rapid oral swab test, I can no longer use my fear of needles as an excuse not to get tested.
Because it only takes 20 minutes and I can finally stop worrying. And it's free.
Because I want to have kids and I need to know how to protect my baby.
Because I've got my own personal reasons to question my HIV status.
An HIV test is a blood test that tests for the antibodies for the HIV virus. And it can be done in 2 different ways. A standard HIV test, which is a blood draw out of your arm, and the point-of-care HIV test that is actually a finger pick test that we can do. It comes in a little kit, and you can get the results right in about 5 minutes. And so the other standard test takes about 7 days to come back, and the quick test, the point-of-care test, is you'll get the results right at the visit.
So what do these HIV tests measure?
The actual antibodies. And with HIV, there's a 3-month window period from when you think you were exposed to HIV and the virus to when the antibodies show up in your bloodstream. So to have an accurate test, it has to be 3 months after that incident. And then you'll have the antibodies show up in your blood if indeed you were exposed to HIV.
Okay, and who should be getting these tests?
Anyone that has had unprotected sex, whether it be oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex, anyone that has come into contact with another person's blood and has had an opening, like in your skin. Anyone, for instance, that shared needles potentially with another person when doing drugs, or anyone that is concerned about a potential exposure and they're just not sure.